This is the Raising Rebellion podcast, episode number 3.
Welcome to the Raising Rebellion Parenting Podcast, where we will explore how to help kids seek purpose and passion, challenge society's expectations, and avoid a standardized life. Now here's your host, Paul H.K.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for being here for episode number 3. Great high-energy interview for you today. Today, I speak with apparel designer Jon Phenom. Jon is someone who found his love for streetwear clothing and design in high school. He was offered and accepted a job midway through college, and today he is a designer himself, an entrepreneur, and is constantly giving back to his community by mentoring startup designers through his YouTube channel. What's most noticeable about Jon is his enthusiasm for what he does and his passion for his industry, his hustle, how he's constantly exploring, and he just has a never-ending thirst for knowledge and learning. His positivity is totally contagious, and there are lots of great qualities and information in here for us parents to pick up on and take away. So without further ado, here's my interview with Jon. All right, we are here today talking to clothing designer, brand ambassador, Jon Phenom. Phenom, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's jump right in and start at the beginning. Can you tell me about your childhood, where you grew up, your home life, and what all of that looked like?
Yeah, so I'm Filipino, and I actually get asked that online all the time. But I'll say that I'm racially ambiguous because people, if I'm in Mexico, I have Mexican family, they'll think I'm Mexican if I'm in Mexico. And apparently in New York and Puerto Rico, I'm Puerto Rican. So, and I was in Brazil just last December. They thought I was Brazilian. So I'm actually, my parents are both from a small city called Bicol in the Philippines originally. And my dad was in the Navy, and my mom back in the Philippines was a teacher. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a lot of military life growing up. You know, I have identical twin brother, which bugs people out, but middle class upbringing in San Diego, California.
Okay, got it. So did you travel at all?
No, that's why I don't say Navy brat per se, because that's the typical perception. My dad put roots down on a house in San Diego, which was an amazing investment in hindsight, and so he was on Westpac a lot. But yeah, we didn't move around. I grew up in first in South Side, and then we moved up to the north side of San Diego before we hit high school and middle school and everything. Okay,
gotcha. So through childhood, you were pretty much in the San Diego area. You went to high school in the San Diego area. Did you any point during that time? Did the whole clothing thing hit you?
It hit me really hard right after high school. So in high school, I was relatively academic, being Asian, I guess. But I also did a lot of acting. I acted, and then on the other side of things, I wrestled. I was a pretty serious athlete. I was like ranked in the state of California in the flyweight divisions for wrestling, which actually taught me a lot about hard work. But in any case, when I was this summer after my senior year, I met this guy named Alyasha Owerka-Moore. Yep. And Ali had just moved from New York to California, and he had started Fat Farm with Russell Simmons. Yep. So this is way back during the Mecca days, and this is like mid 90s. Yeah. So I met him. It was funny. I remember meeting him. Like my hands were shaking. Like he just had the coolest job in the world. So I'd never even thought that someone has to design clothing. So when I I was scheduled to go meet him, I was just like, wow, this is what I thought it might be like to work for MTV or something like that.
Let me interrupt you there for a minute.
Please.
Alyasha, just in case people don't know who this guy is pretty much a streetwear designer legend. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, did you know who he was before you met him?
Just briefly, but very quickly after knowing Ollie, you'll know of him because everyone, especially anyone that was important in fashion and apparel, especially in what was the early days of streetwear, was like everyone knew him.
Right.
He knows. He's like almost like a godfather of it in a way. I mean, he's still young as well, but he was one of the people to talk to and connected to everybody. That was relevant, for sure.
Yeah.
So I met him. The art director in that office was a hometown hero for graffiti, Persuade. And, he's still doing amazing things. Everyone that I met through Alyasha and that network ended up becoming creative directors or design directors in their own right. So I was lucky to meet him. And then, I was smart enough to take advantage of the opportunity to meet him. So that he introduced me to the entire industry, ASR at the time, and the trade shows that were relevant at the time.
Gotcha. So that meeting was the introduction that really hit you hard.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Made a big impact on you.
Exactly. Yeah. Back then, so he worked at Drawers and Dub, which were subsidiary companies or brother sister companies to DC Shoes. Everyone knows DC Shoes.
Yep.
So back before they sold it to Quicksilver, the original owners, they had a Dub outerwear, so the snowboard company, and Drawers clothing. So he was the creative director of the two apparel brands. So it's the first time I saw a working art department, and I thought you would be sewing and putting fabric together at the time, but they worked behind a computer on graphic programs, and then they actually had a whole department of sample sewers. So it was these cool like old ladies in a room building samples. It was so awesome.
Building samples of streetwear.
Yeah. It was these old ladies that you might see at like Joann's or something, shopping for fabric or something. Right. And they were literally putting all the samples together, which is rare now. I mean, typically now we'll just go straight to Asia, with tech packs, with emailing tech packs. But it was a shock to me. Like it was in a great way. I was like, wow, this is my job. This is what I'm going to do.
Right. So that made a pretty significant impact on you. That was after high school. Now, did you go to college?
I did. So, I locked on. I met him when I was about 18, and then I locked on and said, this is the best job in the world, and I'm going to do it. So I did. I was doing community college. I did my GEs, and then right around the third or fourth year, sort of like junior status, I got offered a job. And so, I was thinking, well, let me take this full-time job and I can always go back to school. But really in my heart, I knew that I was going to take it and just run with it. Yep. So the funny is, it's hilarious because I'll speak in tons of universities and especially art colleges. They'll ask what college that I went to, and I actually never finished.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so that kind of kicked off your career, and once you got into it, did you feel like it was just something that you were meant to do? You were enjoying like learning all about it and all the ins and outs, and how did that look?
Yeah, I did enjoy it. There's definitely some rocky moments, and now, as we're recording this, I'm in my late 30s. I'm very close to 40, and it's like I can see via other industries how sometimes like especially the niche that I've worked in fashion is like super unprofessional. So back then, like in my early 20s or so, it's like you don't have anything to compare it to. But I definitely had some struggles, and our industry is filled with, as you and I know, because we worked at a company together in streetwear. Like there's some crazy characters in here, and definitely there's people who get into leadership positions that have no right being there. So I've learned.
By the way, that's not just in the clothing industry. That's
absolutely
every industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, you're like, how did that guy get, like marketing director or something? That's one of the ones. That's one position, by the way. I mean, I could do a whole YouTube on that, but that, like, where you get these people, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But so to answer your question, the contrast in that is great sometimes. Like, it's hard to see how much growth you're having when you might have bad in leadership. But I, just as a person, I'm always a student, always trying to learn and always hungry for what's next. So, throughout the whole, even now, I've been in the industry professionally since 2000, so 16 years in it, and it's everything's changing, so I'm always looking at it and I'm always learning. And the ride has been remarkable, I think, because I just didn't, stay as a designer the whole time and work at one company for like 7 years or something like that. It's been filled with, I was a fashion editor of a print magazine when they used to print. I was a stylist and doing like art direction on like music videos. It's been strange and awesome in terms of growth and experience.
Right. Now, did one opportunity kind of lead to another? You mentioned the other kind of jobs you've had along the way, but they all seem, creative in their own right. They're all, I guess, they were all kind of clothing related, but it sounds like you went away from like production, you went away from design for a little while. Was that just to kind of explore and see what was out there, and the opportunity was presenting itself, so you decided to try it?
Yeah, definitely. Like, so I wasn't working in-house after I used to be the senior men's director at Ezekiel, and that was the biggest brand that I worked for. They were like a $30 million brand.
Yeah, big. And
then I launched in 2007, and that was during the economic meltdown.
Right.
So I just got clobbered, and we discussed this before, but it was a tough time for me because I thought that was the end. Is I would start a company, I would make millions of dollars, and it would be managing my company all the way to retirement.
Right.
But it didn't go like that. So after that, it was actually difficult to find jobs in the 2009, 2010, around that time. So there was a lot of different opportunities that kind of presented themselves, and I just took them. So like the whatever the path is of like maybe just work at a place, associate designer, senior designer. I get bored really easily. And there's a combination of things where if just the project sounded really interesting, I would take, the common factors of any kind of project that I've done before and kind of apply it. But they did all kind of revolve in and around fashion and styling and that sort of thing.
Right. The reason I ask is sometimes I think we just get so caught up and comfortable. And sometimes, the decision is made for us. Like you said, nobody could predict the economic meltdown, or sometimes we get fired from a job or let go or whatever. And, then we're sort of forced to try something different or to look for something different. But, a lot of times we get stuck and we get comfortable. We're getting a paycheck every pay period, and, we get 2 weeks off to go vacation, whatever. So, part of that is I do think it's important to try things. And maybe in your case, it sounds like, you were out there looking, and then you found these kind of interesting opportunities that presented itself, but they were all still kind of within fashion. But you took it. You didn't just say, no, I'm going to stick to what I know, to designing. I'm going to wait until I find a position there. You just went for it, which is great.
Yeah, it's to me, it's all problem solving, and then once you kind of get a handle, it's like, how can I crush this?
Yep.
And that's where the juice is for me a lot of the times.
I love it. Now, when you were still in school, in college, and you got offered that job. You hadn't finished college yet, and you decided to take the job. Did you get any kind of, feedback, resistance from family, friends saying, dude, finish school. What are you doing? Did you get any of that?
Yeah, this is funny because when I speak in colleges, it's like the first thing, especially if you're Asian, like it's the first question. So I'm crazy, right? Like, so I literally sat my parents down and said, this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And
how old
they
were
just
you?
looked at me.
How old were you at the time?
I was 18.
Okay.
18. Yeah. I met Ollie at 18. So I'll say by the time I was like 19 or 20, I just knew that I wanted to design apparel. My focus at that time was I wanted to become an apparel designer. Mm-hmm. And then once I got in, my focus was I wanted to be the best possible apparel designer I could be. Yep. Those are all old goals that I had definitely smashed through because I felt passionate about it. Mm-hmm. But my folks weren't passionate about it. They were like, whoa, this is crazy. And I only found this out after my twin brother told me that they had a discussion with him and said, can you try to convince Jon to go back to school? But it's a testament to a couple things. My parents being able to trust me and it's also a testament to me being crazy because they knew they couldn't convince me not to. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple anomalies there where there's definitely a lot of parents that would be like, no, you're going to finish first. Right. And that's just the way it is. Or, you know what I mean? With consequences attached to it. Yeah. There's also, I'm just kind of, I was so zealous on it. I knew I wanted to be successful at something. And once I made a list of all the things about fashion that were positive, there's so many things like travel, just being a creative professional and just getting paid to do it. Actually at the time I was rapping. I was in a rap group and I was like, if I design clothing, I never have to grow up. So it definitely was a motivation, and it is fun. You know what I mean? I'm in a different stage now where it's not that amazing to me, but I've been through that a million times. I've designed like a million seasons of clothing. Right. But yeah, so the kickback was there. They didn't really present it too tough, and yeah, it kind of worked itself out.
Very nice. So they came around and then eventually they gave you full support? Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll say also, to be 100% candid, there's been ups and downs. So, sure. Karmaloop closing down Arisu when I was the creative director, definitely didn't plan for that. Right. There's a ton of instability in fashion. There's a ton of it. $1 billion industry, you can attach that number to any industry, but there's still a ton of crazy people in it and bad systems, bad management. And so, it wasn't like a I told you so kind of thing. There's definitely moments where I'm like, wow, I should have done something more traditional or conventional. Actually, I'm back in school now online as I work. And that's just a personal goal. I don't need it to, obviously, the last several positions I've had have director attached to it in some, shape or form. Mm-hmm. But going back to school is kind of for me. But it's along the same things where that's my choice, or leaving school at 19 or 20, that's my choice. So,
yep. Well, I think, what you found there, you found something that you were just wide-eyed, passionate about. And I think when you can find that, for me, that's the goal. It's to help my kid find something like that she just gets so amped up about and excited about. Because when that happens, your curiosity just kicks in. You want to figure things out. You're not being told what to do. You're not being, told this is how you do it and this is how you learn. You go seek it out because you want it so bad. And, it sounds like that's what you found, and that's what I want my kid to find as well, whatever it is and whenever it is. That's what I hope for her, to find at some point.
Definitely. And you know what, for all of the audience of Raising Rebellion and what this is geared towards, because I speak in a lot of schools, I don't really get to talk about it a lot. Everything on my channel is helping a brand, but those early years in my story, where, I call them the hustle years, but this was pre-internet. So first of all, kids can't even remember that. They don't even know what that is. Yeah. But, it was insatiable for me. Like, I wanted the design life so badly, to the point, I forget about it now, but it was like I couldn't breathe. It was the only thing I woke up and thought about. I was so focused on it. It was a laser focus. I would show up to the trade show in Vegas. I remember one time I chipped in to get in a car. We were illegally seated in the car. There's like 4 of us in the back of a car that seated like 3 or something. And I literally had $20 in my pocket. I was sleeping on the floor of some random person's hotel room. But I knew I had to be there to meet the people that I eventually were going to work for or work in the same industry for.
Yeah.
And my business cards were like bullets. I would try to get their business card. I would go to every single brand I wanted to work for and ask for the designer or the director. And they'd be like, I look young. So back then when I was 18, I probably looked like I was 13.
Right.
So they're like, who's this kid? But it pumped in my blood, and I could not think of life without it at the time. So yeah, finding that passion is relatively important, and I fuse it with other things now, like in terms of practicality, because I would give my kid a remix version of how to approach it, but definitely is something to strive for.
Yep. I remember a lot of your early days and your hustle, and I think because you wanted it so bad, it was kind of like you had this I don't care. Like, there may have been some fear there, but you just walking into, somebody's booth and asking to speak to, the creative director nobody does that, or you do it with some like hesitancy, and you would just do it from booth to booth to booth to booth to booth.
Yeah, I'd get rejection. It's like sales.
Rejected.
Like I would get rejection.
Right. But you were okay with that. You're like, what do I got to lose?
Yeah. Well, when everyone's looking at you like an idiot and, you feel, it's like lunchroom stuff in middle school or something. Like, I feel bad. I did. But I was definitely overpowered by the concept that I'm going to make a connection here. And that's what happened,
Right.
Like, again, I found, like, say, after approaching maybe 20 booths, I'd maybe get like 4 contacts. Mm-hmm. And I would bug them, but not in a way where I was bugging. I would just keep tabs on them every couple months. It's a cool guy industry, so I'd keep a persona that I'm, not needy, but I would say, hey, if you need an intern, I'll drive up to LA or wherever they were at. Mm-hmm. And, I'll bring you coffee if you want. But it's weird. No one ever could take me up on it. Actually, I understand now because designers are pretty unorganized, generally speaking.
Right.
But yeah, eventually I would say, hey, well, then can I ask you a few questions? And I would have like 10 scripted questions that were all data for me, like, how did you get into your job? Did you go to college? What's a week look like? What's a month look like? What do you love about the job? What do you hate about the job? Those type of things.
Yep.
And so I got a great snapshot about once I got into the job, I almost felt like I knew so much about it.
Mm-hmm. So that's a good segue into what I was going to ask you next is about mentors. Did you, it sounds like you may have had at least a lot of kind of peripheral mentors, I guess in kind of comparison today, pretty much anybody's accessible that has a Twitter account or Facebook or whatever. You can pretty much access them, find their email. Everybody's got their emails out there, and you can ask them questions. And today's world, a lot of times you'll get a response. You'll actually get a response. So you kind of have, I don't know, digital mentors, kind of. It sounds like you might have had that kind of at an early stage back then.
Right.
Did you have any? Yeah. Did you have any like solid mentors in addition to that, and like how important would you say that those people were when you were coming up?
So I'll answer your question first. Mentors are extremely important. So anytime I speak in a school, I'll say to find the best possible person that's doing what you think you want to do. And there's numerous reasons for that, but the main one I'll say is like there's a reason why someone is number one at what they do and why they're 112. You know what I mean? 102 at what they do. Right. So if you just learn, and success leaves clues. So if you simply break down the routine of someone, how they approach just their day or their week, that's number one in whatever category. I mean, it'll make you light years ahead of someone who comes in 200th at doing the same thing. And you don't want to learn from that person. You want to learn from the best. So mentors are important. Now, I'll also say that I didn't have any direct mentors, like Alyosha, as we mentioned earlier, there was a ton of guys that I met like him that were established and doing it well, but they didn't have the time to kind of spend on a kid like me. So, the opportunity now is digitally. I mean, like you could go on my YouTube channel. I have like 300 videos. And so it's almost that's strange. It might have been the cord. Where was I at?
We're talking about mentors, and you're talking about your YouTube channel. You got a whole bunch of videos up there. Yeah.
Okay. So what I wanted to say is now it's like you can have a digital mentorship sort of. Like there's tons of people that I look up to, and I would consider it a mentorship because I'm always looking for more knowledge and insight. Some of the people that I follow, like Gary Vaynerchuk or Tim Ferriss, Lewis Howes, you can jump on my YouTube channel. I have over 300 videos on how to start a line. So in a way, that's mentorship as well. And I know for a fact that it's working because by the time I do a consulting session with someone, I just had one last week with a guy from Harlem. And he said, in a way, his line is a product of a lot of my teachings because he's been following me since day one, and it's really wild to hear that. Wow. But I didn't have a direct mentor. No, it was something similar, and now you can have that more intensely with what the internet affords you. Right.
It's pretty. It's still. I mean, I still think about it. And maybe it's because we knew what life was like before the internet and social media and all that stuff, but it's still mind-blowing to me. And what is great is that so many people like yourself give so much, whereas opposed to, I feel like culture might have been in the past where you kind of keep your cards close to your chest because, that's all you got and that's how you move ahead. And I feel like it's kind of changed into today's world where the way that you move ahead is by giving. Gary Vee, you mentioned Gary Vee. I mean, I know he preaches this a whole lot. Give, and then, maybe when you do need to ask for something, then maybe you ask for a little something. But in the meantime, it's all about giving and helping others before you ask for something for yourself.
Definitely agree with that.
Yep. Okay. We talked about, I know we're talking about giving. I know that you give back to your community a ton. You're on all social media, pretty much. Lots of speaking engagements. How much time and effort do you put into all of your social media marketing?
Not as much as I should, actually. And I'm somewhere in between Seth Godin and Gary Vaynerchuk on this answer, and maybe a little bit of Tim Ferriss. But like Seth Godin doesn't subscribe into doing a whole lot of different social medias if he doesn't have time for it. Like he just wants to focus on the ones that he's good at, just for reference. And Gary Vaynerchuk who's crazy. All systems go on everything. So somewhere in between that. But I do a good amount of, I have my public Facebook channel, but I didn't really go too tough on it prior to Facebook Live, but now there's Facebook Live, which I think is going to take out Periscope.
Yeah,
so I was starting to Periscope a little bit, but all your staple social media channels like Instagram, I'm heavy on. And then Facebook in general, I'm heavy on, but now there's a little bit more emphasis because of Facebook Live. You know, and then my Twitter account, I'll do native tweets on that as well, but it's not as often. But there's a good part of my week. To me, it's just kind of mixed in. You know, it's a great thing, and then at the same time, it's a necessary evil.
Right. It can pretty much be all consuming if you let it be, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have real work to do, but you know, I've always just kind of been Jon Phenom sort of thing. So there's always been a mix of personal and business usage for almost everything. So, you know, the same Instagram where I'll put pictures of my mom and my dad and my family, you know, I'll talk about apparel as well. But yeah, it's a kind of all part of my life.
Right. Well, I give you big time props for your social media game. I mean, you're everywhere. You're in a lot of different places, and I follow you in a lot of different places. So I don't know where you find the time. Frankly, I don't know if I have that kind of time to put into it for this even. You know, I know it's something I got to do, but I don't know if I can be in that many places at the same time. But we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But you know, I want to talk about one of your creations, the Status Show. Can you tell me a little bit about Status Show, you know, how you thought of that, how that came to be, and kind of the future of that? What's that looking like? What's your goal with that?
Yeah, I'm super hyped on Status Show. So what it is it's like a curated pop-up shop fused with like education and sort of like public speaking or like just the curation of thoughts, you know, of the progress and the state of fashion, sort of. That sounds a little more grandiose than it is. So, you know, I wanted to create a solution for startup brands because I would say like 90% of my YouTube subscribers are all startup brands just from the quality of questions. So I'll have YouTube videos where I'll talk about more advanced things, but I think the typical person is pretty much just a shoestring startup. You know, it's a very green entrepreneur. So, you know, I just kind of realized these guys who are or my community, you know, they have nowhere to go. And trade show after trade show, I'd see people, you know, you see the brands, you go up and down the rows, and you see the ones that are not going to last past 2 shows.
Right.
You know, they have a brand, they've been sitting on it for, let's say, 2 years, and they show up to like, you know, Agenda or Magic. You know, when I say Magic, any one of those shows like Liberty or Project, whatever it is at the time that you listen to this, you know, whatever trade show is popping. And it's like they think the next thing that they do is bring their brand to a trade show. But if you don't have any retail base, you don't know any buyers, you're literally going to burn $6,000 to $10,000 of your money per show easily.
Easy.
Horrible experience, and it'll be the death of your dream.
Yeah.
So I was helping us. I was the director of operations of a startup trade show, and I was kind of watching it work, and I was like, you know, there's got to be some sort of solution, some sort of in between. So Status Show in a lot of ways is my answer to that. Like, it's a way for a brand to introduce to market with a fraction of the money that it costs to show at a trade show. At the same time, I'll infuse it with a lot of education and fashion professionals and veterans talking about their experience. And I'm lucky because I've been surrounded by it since 2000. But, you know, someone who consults with me in like Minnesota or Alabama or, you know, or in the UK, they have a different experience and they're not exposed to all the ins and outs that I know. So it's a way for me to bring it in person as well to some of the brands. You know, so I'll do straight up brand audits while I'm there and talk with a brand one-on-one. So we're really excited about it. You know, as this is recording, we're prepping for our third one in San Diego. already have our sights set on the fourth one in LA before the end of this year and 2016. So I'm going heavy on it, and we think it could definitely, it can be, if I can be lofty, I can say, we think it could be something revolutionary. My small team does, but we'll see. At the end of the day, otherwise it could be just kind of a fun show where we help people literally get to another stage in their fashion career.
That sounds super interesting to me. It's almost like it's almost an on-the-job school / actual trade show. So you're getting kind of the real-life experience, bringing your line to a show to show people, customers, buyers, what have you. But at the same time, you're getting, if you go to a trade show, I know from experience we went, and you're only getting feedback pretty much from buyers, and that's if you can even get the buyers into your booth in the first place. But here, it's it has that educational element to it that can really help people not only save money for their company, but to get that kind of invaluable feedback at the same time.
Yeah, I think this concept or model at its optimum gives you exposure, like all the things that you would kind of have at a trade show without paying like a ridiculous amount of money. Like that, our current. I was just telling my show director, like the current system is broken, and I'm not saying the trade shows are broken. I think Aaron is doing great things at Agenda. I know a couple people at Magic as well. There's several projects I might work with the people that own Magic, in fact, and that they're doing a good service, right? Yeah. But there's not enough options as fashion is changing, and barrier to entry versus like not even 10 years ago, like 5 years ago, that wall is getting smashed down. I could start a line in the next like couple hours. You come up with a logo, superimpose it on a shirt, open up a big cartel page, right? And boom, I have a brand or a line or whatever. There's point of contention there. I don't want to split hairs over my example, but there you are. So now it's like, well, what do you do? And the answer to that question is also different from 5 years ago and 10 years ago. If you show that brand at a trade show, the buyers aren't going to touch you with a 10-foot pole. They don't want to talk to you. You're going to try to sell them a line. It's just a broken interaction. So with Status Show, I think we can achieve a lot of great things for the startup and the interim, and then even established brands, can sell side by side. And another thing is you sell direct to public, so you can get feedback in person, and meet these people that you're selling your brand to. So, it's all about providing solutions and maybe trying to evolve how a brand can kind of break into the market.
I really love that idea. I think it's fantastic. I agree. Trade shows have been stuck for a long time as to what they are, and this one sounds like it's next level, next gen, and I think it's great. I love it. Okay, so besides Status Show, tell me what else is on the horizon for you. It's probably taken up a lot of your time, but are you working on anything else, anything new that we should be keeping an eye out for?
I have a big project. Like I can't. I hate when people do that, but I can't say too much about it.
That's all right.
For the followers and the subscribers, I think it's going to be an ultimate viewpoint of all the things that I teach, because I kind of give behind the scenes when I'm working for a brand or a project, which I have too many of. But it's I'll say that if you're following me or subscribing, then you'll see the project. There's no way that you're gonna miss it. We're hoping that it's something really big, and it's gonna be all available online for free. Like it's gonna be good viewing. So and it's gonna merge a couple things together. But that project, stay tuned for, sort of. But other than that, there's a whole lot of content that I have that I'm excited to release. On my YouTube channel and on jonphenom.com. Once we're redesigning that site and getting it set for me to put some traffic on. And I have a ton of courses that I'm currently putting together. So that whole like Jon Phenom Academy, clothing brand mentor, like intensive courses, actual online courses are going to be on jonphenom.com before the end of the year. So that immediately this summer is going to book the hell out of my summer. So that's a big project, or several projects in between. So between that and the next several status shows, you want to stay tuned for all of that madness.
Man, that's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, you'll have to come back on at some point so we can touch base and get the updates from all the stuff you got going on. That's really great. So last question. This podcast, it's called Raising Rebellion, and the rebellion is about thinking about different options instead of just throwing them through the society system, right? School, job, career. And maybe just thinking about also keeping an eye out for things that you love to do, things that hit you deep down inside, right? That moves you, and it's meaningful to you, and you find it something that you just want to seek out and that you love to do, right? So what advice can you give to parents, to kids who might be listening, on how to become a successful rebel in life?
So to become a successful rebel, we talked about earlier finding mentors and mentorship, but I mean, a younger me, and I guess you can see in all the interviews, is all about like kind of the passion word. But in hindsight, there's a few different moves that I would have made. Not that I have regret, but to put it simply, it's like, what I would tell my kid is be very passionate about what you're going to do, but also you got to mix that with a lot of preparation. There's a really great book that kind of encapsulates my thoughts on it. There's a book by this guy named Cal Newport. Mm-hmm. And he wrote a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You. Mm-hmm. And he talks about, don't do a job because you're passionate about it, because you might be broke. And he has, that's controversial for people that are go-getters, but it's very intelligent if you read into his argument, because for every one story that you hear of an entrepreneur make it, obviously there's 9 others that is like, wow, I got to go back to my job or a job because this blew out my savings or whatever. Mm-hmm. So while you should be passionate, I think you got to have a good reasoning behind it, like a good plan. So when I sat down and told my parents I was going to become a clothing designer, mm-hmm. I also did present them with a plan of how I was going to do it.
Right.
And through luck and determination, I mean, it definitely worked out for me. Mm-hmm. But you always want to be mindful of the craft and kind of the value that you're creating, right? So that's something you can take into anything that you do. When I speak to especially younger kids, I'll say, your dream is going to change. I don't care what your dream is now, it's going to change. It's going to change if you're in college.
Yeah.
It's going to change. Or you might get to that dream. This has happened to me before. Mm-hmm. You get to that dream and you're like, wow, this job sucks. Mm-hmm. Even if I kind of spin it my own way, and then you find another job and you're like, wow, this is very interesting. So everyone's career is going to change. That's what studies are showing. Right. So I think if you always take with you the traits and the skills, the crafting of whatever that is, you can bring it into whatever your next new goals or new career goals are,
Yep. Great advice. Jon Phenom is a streetwear clothing designer, a speaker. He's an entrepreneur, a brand coach, and a big-time mentor. Definitely check out his website, jonphenom.com. That's JONPHENOM. He's very active on YouTube. Definitely check out his YouTube channel, youtube.com/designer Jon Phenom. I will make sure to put those links as well as other social media links in all of the show notes. So in case you're listening and you missed it, you can go to the website and pick up on all those links there. Phenom, I appreciate you. I can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing your story, and for all that you do for your community and giving back to the people and helping them come up. Just like you're giving back, just like you received information, but when you were young, you're giving it right back. So I wish you continued success, all the best, and I'll be touching base with you soon.
Cool, I appreciate it. Thank you, Rebels. I appreciate it.
Thank you again to the phenomenon, Jon Phenom, for taking the time with us today. Our website is raisingrebellion.com, where you can find all of our podcast episodes, show notes, and sign up for our mailing list. Join the community at facebook.com/raisingrebs and at raisingrebs on Twitter. If you're enjoying our podcast, I'd really appreciate your help by subscribing, rating, and or leaving a review. It helps the show a lot if you do. Do you know any other Rebel parents? If you do, please feel free to spread the word. And finally, I really appreciate you listening, and I'm truly grateful for you being here. Thank you very much. And until next time, go Rebs.
The revolution will not be standardized.